and the division of NatWest called Coutts. And there's a fair bit of snobbery around this one. It used to be known as the Queen's Bank. And Coutts is basically where rich people put their money, the bank that rich people use. You have to have a minimum amount before you can bank with Coutts. Anyway, Coutts took the decision to debank Nigel Farage, to cancel him as a banking customer, if you like. The head of NatWest, Dame Alison Rose, when questioned, discussed the reasons with a BBC News reporter, breaking the first rule of banking, namely that people's details and accounts be held confidential. That's CONFIDENTIAL, meaning that you don't share customer details with anyone. Apparently, it was because of Nigel Farage's political views, which were not consistent with Coutts' values, and this was why he was debanked. Anyway, a whole storm blew up. Dame Alison Rose has had to resign from her senior role running NatWest Bank. She was paid £5.25 million in her salary last year. But you can't take banking services away from someone, argued Nigel Farage, because you don't agree with their political viewpoint. You may or may not like Nigel Farage, but I think he's right on this one. And he did receive an apology from the BBC. In an age where we seem to be heading away from the concept of cash, CASH, which means coins and notes, and going headlong towards digital currency, this sort of thing just underlines the power that the banks would have over our lives if digital currency were the only currency. Surely you can't refuse someone a bank account because you disagree with them. If you know the series Black Mirror, great for English language practice, this sounds a little bit like one of their plots. Their plot lines around social credit, perhaps. Second news story. Among nearly 200 nations worldwide, only 4 enforce drug trafficking-related death penalties. So the BBC News website reported this week that Singapore executed its first woman in 20 years for drug trafficking. Vocabulary: to execute, E-X-E-C-U-T-E, means to put to death, to kill, in other words. A drug trafficker means someone who brings illegal drugs into a country. So this execution drew attention and protest in Singapore because it was a woman being executed. Sawidui Jamani, age 45, was found guilty of trafficking heroin, HEROIN, in 2018. It's less unusual for men to be executed for drug trafficking in Singapore, but the protest is really against the death penalty. A death penalty means there's an option for the courts to sentence to death. So Singapore has some of the world's toughest penalties for drug trafficking. They can even execute traffickers for bringing in cannabis. That's CANNABIS, if they bring more than half a kilo into the country. Strange, because in parts of the US, cannabis is actually legal. Though I do think there is evidence of harm, HARM, with cannabis. It's not a completely innocuous drug, not as bad as heroin though. The death penalty is seen by many as too much, too harsh. British businessman Richard Branson saw fit to make comment. He gave his opinion on Twitter saying, "Small-scale drug traffickers need help as most are bullied due to their circumstances." Or should I say X rather than Twitter, as Elon Musk seems to have renamed it this week. Anyway, Amnesty International also commented, saying that alongside China, Iran and Saudi Arabia, Singapore is one of only 4 countries to have recently carried out drug-related executions.